It's a right buzz when snooker's on in Sheffield. It's a great place, and I think it's a very friendly city, Sheffield, and I think that's obviously, I hope to think, one of the reasons why the tournament stayed in this city, because we love having it here, you know, and we're very proud.
So John, talking about snooker, one of your great loves and passions, and obviously being a Sheffield lad, you would have grown up with that vibe in the city. Tell us a bit about how you first got into it.
I feel like snooker's always been something that's been there. You know, being a Sheffield lad, you're obviously aware of the fact the tournaments held in the city each year. But my grandparents love snooker, and obviously being someone who grew up through the 80s, literally my first memory, genuinely my first memory is when I was a kid, 1985, so I must have been four and a half. And my mum used to work night shifts and my dad worked day shifts. They were hardly ever together when I was a kid because we had no money, so they had to work, and one of them had to look after me. And my mum had just gone to work, and me and my dad like sat up and watched that classic final, you know.
He's done it. Dennis Taylor, for the first time, becomes Embassy World Snooker Champion 1985.
Dennis Taylor, and that's my first ever memory, genuinely, which is amazing, right? But snooker's just a thing you're aware of in Sheffield, and I think we had a lot of snooker clubs in the city, and also you would see the players; they were very visible growing up. You know, we used to go to Meadow Hall, and Stephen Hendry was synonymous with his sweater shop thing, and like even used to go to local pub in Upperthorpe where like my family used to live, and you'd see like Jimmy White in there, or you know, any legends really. They all used to be very visible in the city. And I remember when I was about 12, and I once like went through town on my way home rather than catching the school bus. Sometimes you'd go to town on your way home, and I got like Ken Doherty's autograph on a back of a bus ticket, because they were like, I don't know, they seemed like really famous to me, snooker players growing up. They were a big deal, you know, and like I guess I would have been a snooker groupie. Really, I would have idolised them in some way because I kind of played a bit myself and had a real appreciation for how amazing what they do is, you know. I think the atmosphere in Sheffield is amazing when snooker's on, actually. You can feel it, and when you walk through, obviously walk through the city centre, you see loads of advertisements and stuff. And I once saw like Willie Thorne at swimming baths, like no word of a lie, when snooker were on, and he must have thought, oh, I'll go for a swim like you do, an hour in there, and he was like under water, and he like burst out of water like a massive walrus, and I'm like, oh, it's Willie Thorne. They're like, yeah, it's a right buzz when snooker's on in Sheffield. It's a great place, and I think it's a very friendly city, Sheffield, and I think that's obviously, I hope to think, one of the reasons why the tournament stayed in this city, because we love having it here, you know, and we're very proud, and especially in light of how much the game's grown internationally, that it continues to be held in Sheffield is a source of immense pride, really, you know. And I think the Crucible's a special venue, I have to say, even like for non-snooker events. If you go to see a play or a musical there, something about that room, I don't know what it is, but it's just, oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? I took my father-in-law he'd always wanted to go to World Snooker Championships, and about 6 years ago I took him for the first time, and when that hush descends, goose pimples, and I'm like, this is it, mate. I've seen it a million times. I can't explain it unless you've been in the room. There's some magic in air, you know. I can imagine the centre court at Wimbledon, maybe, or World Cup final night, the only things, but it's the silence. Something about the silence, it's like a pregnant silence, because everybody's sort of right on the edge of the seat and stuff. And if you get a good match, if you get a classic match, there's nothing in the world like it. It's phenomenal. Selby's win, because it was the weekend Leicester, or the moment Leicester won the Prem, right? And I randomly got sat next to Roy Keane, who just looked really hard and frightening. And Roy Keane told me Leicester had won the title. Then obviously Selby won, and that kind of, you know, amazing like double celebration moment. That was pretty special, really. Just seeing how happy he were, really. I think it just, you know, it were a great thing. And then historically looking back, I always look back to that kind of great kind of Jimmy White, Stephen Hendry thing, and I think the last time he beat him, and I could have just cried. In fact, I think I might have cried. Even though they're incredibly talented, there's always that bit of you at the back of your mind that thinks, you know, if I put a few hours in, I could have a go at this, which is obviously nonsense because I'd be terrible. The word genius is overused, especially in music in my industry. Oh, he's a genius. But the upper echelon of snooker players, there is no other word. There is no other word, because how they do what they do, and yeah, it looks good on telly, but it's when you see them doing it, it's spellbinding. It's like literally somebody's putting you under a spell. And I've been lucky, Anna, because I've been behind cameras, so you're literally on the very front row. You've got a better view than commentators even. And seeing like your top players, I remember like watching Ding like do like some mad 120 break or something, and I was just like, how's he done that? Like, you know what I mean? Like a physically, in a physics way, like how on earth has he done that? It's beautiful. It really is. It's poetry. You know, I don't want to go over the top, but it is. Ronnie O'Sullivan, to take the best example, he's a rock star. There's no doubt about it. He could be the lead singer of the Rolling Stones or Oasis or whoever. He's a complete rock star. And for whatever reason, people love that. Not for whatever reason, he's an entertainer. Like you say, he's an entertainer, and Trump, to some degree, is an entertainer. And we love them people, you know what I mean? Them people who show off, and it must be very difficult to be both incredibly good at what you do and to have that sort of peacocking thing. I mean, I were at the frame a few years back when Ronnie decided we were going to take his shoes off, and then his next thing is borrowed somebody else's shoes out at crowd or something, which is just like, what are you doing? Like, just live, all of it live on telly, you know. And you just think like, and for whatever reason, them characters have been squeezed out of other sports. Maybe it's the physical demands that are placed on footballers particularly. But snooker players still have that kind of earthiness to them, that kind of reality, that sort of rock star thing where you think, oh, you're amazing. You know what I mean? And I don't know, that's why it's my favourite sport, really. I think snooker players are genuine, and I think it also speaks that it's, especially in this country, in the UK, you've got lads who've spent a lot of time in snooker clubs, right? Where traditionally you'd have like a few dodgy characters hanging around and you'd be boozing, and it's a certain kind of environment, right, to hang around in a snooker club in the first place, often. And I think that's great, because you've got real stories. And then suddenly these lads are like thrust out into light in front of all cameras, and they're live on BBC One and BBC Two, and in press interviews. And of course they're going to say mad things, you know. And I think, like, without wanting snooker to become WWE or whatever, I like a bit of that. I think it's all right, you know. And we love a character. We love Tyson Fury for the same reasons we love Ronnie O'Sullivan, because he's likely to say something absolutely bonkers at any moment. And I think that's great. And I don't feel like the authorities ought to censure snooker players too heavily. Obviously, if they act terribly and say awful things, fine them. But I think to some degree, I think it makes headlines, and I think they should be like not encouraged but allowed to just say what they want to some degree. I think it's great. It makes good copy, doesn't it, as they say. You've got these great influx of players from China and from other parts of the world. You've got kind of female competitors, and it'll be a matter of time before one of them wins it or goes on to dominate the sport. And I think, like, that's good. That's good, because it's a story that's continuing to develop and to evolve rather than stand still. I think before this century's close, a Chinese woman will come to dominate the world of snooker, and I think that's wonderful. You've got this sport that's traditionally been played by like white fellas in England, historically maybe. I know the history of snooker goes further back than that from other countries. And you're going to think like there's probably like some young lass in China somewhere who's going to like whoop everybody. I think that's beautiful. I think that's amazing. And it makes me think if China particularly has adopted this sport and took it to its heart, where else might? There's a lot of other like really populous countries, especially in Asia, Malaysia and Philippines and places like that. And you think like India, you think, what if they get into it? It's exciting, and it's all right, the unique tables are expensive, but it's relatively democratic snooker. It's not a motor racing track or a boxing ring. It's a relatively cheap, affordable sport. And I think that's great, and long may it continue. I think I'd like to see Ding win, because I think he's as close as we've got to like a hometown hero in some ways, Ding. He's been here a long time now, and he's took this city to his heart, and like been coming here a long time, and we've got a large Chinese community in Sheffield, and I think it's about time we let him. I think it'd be nice to see him to do it. I think definitely.